Okay, this may seem like kind of a silly video until you got to do it. Now, I didn't know this because I've never replaced all my brake lines. Here's the proportion valve. So I drew a chart. Here's the master, and here's the proportion valve, and it's sitting like this. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. It's easy to make a mistake, and that's why I got this inch thread to check. So, just to show you this is more complicated than you think. Coming out of the master is 9/16 18-inch thread. Coming out of the other side of the master is a 1/2 inch times 20 by 3/16. So, and the first one was a 1/4 inch tubing, and this is 3/16. So I numbered these. So number one, from the master to the proportion valve is 7/16 times 24 times a 1/4, because the 1/4 follows. And then from the master to this to proportion valve is a 1/2 times 20 times 3/16. Again, that's 3/16. Now going to the driver's right side caliper, it's 3/8 times 24 times 3/16. Go to number 4 here. It's 3/8 by 24 by 3/16. These two are the same. Number 5 is going to the rear axle where it splits into two lines to each brake. It's 9/16 times 18 times a 1/4. So if you look at this, I think what you do is you kind of split this master cylinder in half. You know how there's two bowls in the master? So you got a 1/4 coming out into the proportion and a 1/4 going to the back. And when it gets to the rear axle, when it gets to the very back, then it'll split to 3/16 again. Like it's over here. If I can remember, I'll swing over to this axle. Now, again, I was saying to the right front caliper and to the passenger side caliper, we've got 3/8 24. When we get to the calipers, they go into a hose like this. You know, the fitting's going to go in like that. Those are also 3/8 24. And the flex line is 15 inches, by the way. And it's got a 7/16 hole for the banjo bolt. And this clip is what holds it into the bracket. Then when we get to the rear axle, so the 1/4 inch line is coming down to the, then it's 7/16 24 1/4. Like I was saying, it's a 1/4 line. But once it hits this valve over here, I guess I'm gonna have to swing over there. It's then going to switch to 3/16. So putting that aside, so then I made a list of each one. Again, this might seem silly, but it's very easy to get confused. So we have 7/16 24 1/4, 1/2 inch 20, 3/16, 3/8 24, 3/16, 3/8 24, 3/16, 9/16, 18. These are threads per inch. 1/4, 1/2 20, 3/16, 9/16, 18, 1/4, 3/8 24, 3/16, 3/8 24, 3/16, 7/16, 24, 1/4. The point of this whole thing is it can be very confusing if you want to get it right. So let's say that all your brake lines break off like most of these did. Like this one, it's just, well, this one's loose, but some of these are just plain frozen. Let's try this one. You want to know what is that? Okay, well, just because I know, I'm gonna cheat. Look at my drawing. That is 7/16 24. Of course, on most of these, you can try it in here to double check yourself, but this doesn't have 7/16 24. It's got 7/16 20 and 7/16 14. Just to prove it, this is the fine thread. 7/16 20. Won't thread on. And you don't want to, and there's all different size fittings, so you gotta be careful. Let me just get one tool. Oh, I don't know if I'll swing over here to the axle I was talking about. Let me just walk over there. So looking at this chart, the 7/16 24 1/4 is going to go into there, but then when it gets to this block, I'll call it, then it switches to 3/16. So everything here is 3/16. So basically, the brake lines to the brakes are 3/16. The main line that runs from front to back is 1/4. Which, you know, after you do this a while, it starts to make sense because, so basically, as I was saying before, the master has 1/4 coming out and a 3/16. The 3/16 is going to the two fronts directly, and the 1/4 is just a main line to get to here. And that's why the cylinder is cut in half when you look inside the master cylinder. So I just want to make this as quick as I can. Let me get this other tool. So let's put this back in. I guess I'm in the wrong spot. I do that all the time, sorry. I'm going back down here, hopefully over my shoulder. And if I was to do this all over again, because the lines are shot, take a picture, make a drawing like this where the lines are going. Then just cut these things off with a grinder or something. Put them in here. That way you can bring them over to the bench. So going back to this one. This is a tap and die. So I just happen to know what I say. This was it's real easy to get confused here. 7/16 is 24. So these things are broken up into all different size threads. I mean, I don't have to do this, but I'm just going to do it. So this is the 24 right here. It'll drop right in perfect if it's the right size. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not sure where I am in the camera, but let's just try the wrong size. get it out of here. I could use a better set. So it's small. Let's just try, just exaggerate. 14. It just doesn't drop in. So I would say if you're running into this problem, because I've never had it in my life, that you check, that you do just exactly like I said. I've been working on this for a while, trying to figure out what was the simplest way. And what I just told you is the simplest way. Because let's face it, my whole life, I'm 64, I've never had to replace all the brake lines. Never. Or never wanted to. But when it does happen, you need to have drawings, pictures. I even got a video, and I'm explaining to myself where each where each brake line went. But I realized, again, to say it one more time, before you disconnect anything, draw yourself a diagram. Measure the tubing, because you see it's 2 different sized tubing. And you just use a gauge like this. And just print a chart like this. This is a good chart. So we'll just do this once. So let's say I don't know what size this is. I'll turn on my gauge, set it to 0. It's in inches, not fractions, not decimals, but inches. I'm going to measure it. Again, it's not going to be perfect. Okay, but it says 0.18. 0.18. So you look at this chart. 0.187 is 3/16. If it was a quarter, it'd be 250. That's a big difference. So let's just do the quarter. Again, this is a Harbor Freight. Just 0 it. 2490. Well, we should know that should be a 1/4 inch, because it's almost 250. So anyway, it's 249. It's 249. Well, I think all it really matters is the first 0.24. 0.25. It's not anywhere near 1.18. And 5/6, it's not anywhere near 3/16, which is 3.31. I think that's it. I mean, that's a lot to take into, but trust me, you can get screwed up real fast. I wanted to share one more thing. I always do this every video. This fitting here is see, it won't even slip. It is a 1/4 inch. It won't slip on this quarter. But the point I'm making, there's two different types of fittings. So older cars and newer cars, the metric started coming in. So you could have metric threads. You could have different sized tubes. If you can see in there, that's got like a 45 lip into it. That's the double flare. Some of the other ones, some of the other cars, and I don't know which years, but they don't have the 45. They're flat, and that's called a DIN fitting, or an ISO fitting, which is something like international standard. And the DIN is something from Germany, some kind of German standard. But this is a ASE fitting, which is an American. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you got to watch out for. If you do all this, and you're real careful, and mark your lines when you take them off, and like I said in my other videos, you'll save yourself a lot of grief. I just wanted to add one more thing. So let's say you go to the store and they give you the right pieces, but you never check them and you put them on and they don't fit. And then you force them in because you think they're right, but they're not. So let's say you have a fitting like this. Let me take this back out. You could, if you don't have one of these, you can use a tape measure, but just measure the outside of the threads. Again, on, 0. So this is 0.36. So again, we're measuring the outside, not the inside now. 0.36. Well, unfortunately, this is not in fractions. If I put it in a fraction mode, let's just try that. Inches, fractions. Well, it's real close. See, it jumps around. See if there's 3/8. If I tighten it a hair more, and the inside, flip this thing over. .25 and 1/28. So what the heck is 1.5, 1/28? I don't have a calculator. But if we go back to that's millimeters, that's inches. One more time. .197. Well, according to this, 0.197. The closest to that is 0.18 on this chart. Or you could, 3/16 is 0.18. 13/64 is 0.203. Anyway, the point is, check everything. Everything.